So today I want to do a quick lesson on solving multiplication equations. Those are multiplication equations with variables where we're solving for x. It's just like we have been doing, and it's something that you're going to see in the notes if you haven't seen it already. So let's get started. To solve a multiplication equation, something like this one here, 3x equals 6, we want to be solving for x. And to do that, we want to use the division property of equality. Now, the division property of equality states that if you have two sides of an equation and you divide them by the same amount, it's going to keep your equation balanced. Remember, that's always our goal, is to keep our equation balanced. So, I have no idea where my eraser is. Eraser. 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 I'll be back. I gotta go find it. Apparently even my own house is a little unorganized. Alright, so as I was saying, we want to use the division property of equality to balance out our equation. We'll come back to that in a second. So remember, our goal is to get x by itself. So right now we have 3 times x equals 6. I know you can solve it in your head, but I want you to be able to show it to me and show me on paper how to solve it. So if 3 times x is 6, that's x times 3. Now we can't just say we're going to subtract 2x from each side, because if we remember the golden rule, we're going to be left with 6 minus 2x, so that won't work. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use division, the same term on both sides. We're going to divide both sides by 3. Now, the reason this works is because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And when you're left with 1x, you're basically saying 1 times x. Now, I don't care what x is. X can be anything you want. According to our identity property, when you multiply something by 1, it's just going to be itself. So this doesn't really cancel out, but it becomes 1x or just x, because 1x and x are the same thing. And golden rule, what we do to one side, we do to the other. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And this is you showing your work, and this is what I want you to do when you solve the problems. So 3x equals 6, divide both sides by 3, and you're going to get x equals 2. And you've showed me that you've divided. Now division happens to be the inverse of multiplication, and that's what we do. We find the inverse operation, we do that. So let's do another practice problem and see what we get. We'll do 6x equals 18. X is being multiplied by 6. The inverse of being multiplied by 6 is being divided by 6. Show me you can divide 6 by both sides. Remember my golden rule. This becomes 1x, or just x. So x equals 18 over 6, simplifies down to 3 over 1, or just 3 when we have our final answer. I want to go over one more thing before I let you try it on your own. What if you end up with a problem that looks something like this? 1/2 x equals 8. How do we get x by itself? Well, x is being multiplied by 1/2. So how do we solve it? To get rid of a fraction like this, we want to take this fraction and multiply it by its reciprocal. Because anytime you multiply a fraction by a reciprocal, if you remember, 1/2 times its reciprocal, we're always going to get 1. So the reciprocal of 1/2, just flip the fraction, is going to be 2 over 1. So multiply 2 over 1, remember my golden rule, 8, we're going to put that over 1, times 2 over 1, and we're going to end up with this being 1x, or just x, and this being 16 over 1, or 16. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see that anytime soon, but it's an important thing to keep in mind. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we get into division, but when you multiply something by its reciprocal, you get 1. But for right now, what I want you to focus on is keep it simple. (8x = 64). If you want full credit on your homework, which I hope that you do, you want to show me your work. Show me the division on both sides. Divide both sides by 8. Divide both sides by 8. Remember my golden rule. You're going to end up with 8 over 8, which is 1x, or just x, because 1 times x is x. And 64 divided by 8 equals 8. X equals 8. Use those inverse operations to help you solve the problem. All right? That's all I got for today. Good luck. Oh, man.